Hi there, this is Mike Kudo, and I'm a Portuguese boy from New Bedford, Massachusetts, so I would have to have a recipe for kale soup. Now there were just so many recipes that I think if you go to YouTube you could find so many different versions of this soup. Originally caldo verde, which is green soup. It's basically kale, potatoes, onions, and water. And that was the popular soup in Portugal. But variations have come along where people add things to it, especially here in New England. And so I tend to do that. In the beginning, I grew up not liking kale soup. I don't know what it was. I think my family used collards, and they didn't use, which I think went with the caldo verde, but they didn't use curly kale. And it really wasn't until my 30s when I finally had a bowl of kale soup that my son didn't want to finish at a restaurant. I took a sip of it, taste of it was the broth. I took a sip of it, then I ate the whole thing. And since then I've loved kale soup, and my kale soup recipe has gone through many iterations over the years. Lately I have tended to go less meat and more veggies for health purposes. But I think it's delicious, and I thought I'd share it with you today. So I'm going to start now by showing you what goes into my kale soup. So obviously, basically, we're going to have kale, and this is a 1 pound bag of pre-washed kale. I will chop it up a little further than it is in the bag because I like small pieces of kale, but I'll probably only use about 12 ounces of it because I don't want to be too thick with kale. I like to have a nice mixture of kale and chorizo, carrots, an onion, some garlic, potatoes, and kidney beans. This is basically what I'll have in my soup. As I said before, this is a great invention. Chef John taught me this trick. Slice a little bit of the potato off, and now you have a flat side so the potato doesn't roll and cut you. So I took that to heart because I don't want to be losing any fingers. That's for sure. Okay, I got everything cut up. Potatoes chopped, minced garlic, kidney beans drained and ready to go. The kale I'll chop into smaller pieces as everything else is simmering. There's my onions, carrots, and the chorizo. I didn't mention earlier, but the broth that I like to use, collagen, and I usually use low sodium because I might add a little bit of salt as I'm cooking. First thing I'm going to do is add the onions and the carrots. Slowly work in the chorizo. Garlic I'll throw in too at the end. I don't want to burn it, so I save it toward the end. But let me get things started here. This is going to be my supper tonight. It's a nice, cool September day. Still summer, but today's a cool, dry day, so lends itself for this kind of meal, although I could eat this every day, even when it's 100 degrees out. It's so good. Now, Portuguese chorizo and Portuguese linguiça are very similar. Portuguese chorizo has a little bit more paprika and also a little bit more of the chili pepper. Funny, I live in New Bedford. It seems that linguiça is more popular in New Bedford than chorizo. In our neighboring city, our sister city, Fall River, it seems that chorizo is a lot bigger there than it is here in New Bedford. Okay, I'm going to add the garlic. There are so many recipes on YouTube for kale soup. If you just Google it, there's just so many. Even, Chef John, who's Italian and Polish, makes Kale de verde. Everybody does. Maria Lawton has a wonderful recipe, very similar to this one. She also does Kale de verde. Emerald, of course, has his own. Emerald adds a little crushed red pepper to his kale soup. Chef John adds a little cayenne pepper. He adds cayenne pepper to just about everything, because I do a lot of his recipes, and he always kicks it up a notch. But I'm enjoying it just the way this is. I'll give that a shot one day. Also, a lot of people will, before they'll cook the chorizo first, and then take it out, and then they'll do the onions and the potatoes and the carrots, or without carrots, and they'll use an immersion blender once it's simmered a while to thicken up the broth, or they'll use a potato masher. And russet potatoes are very good for that because they tend to fall apart more easily than Yukon Gold, which will hold themselves into a shape a lot longer than russets will. So depending on how you like your soup, if you like to have chunks of potato that are more solid, you might want to use Yukon Gold. If you want the potato to, just by doing what I'm doing here, the potato, once it's cooked, will start falling apart and thicken up the soup on its own. And I'm going to add the potatoes and the kidney beans. And I'll probably end up using more than I have here. This is 2 quarts, 8 cups. And although you can see how that tops it right off pretty well, maybe not. I have a little bit in the fridge that I might add to this. You see, there's plenty of room for kale to find space in between all of this. So this might be the way it goes. We'll see how that works out. I'm going to up the temp a little bit and get this up to a simmer and let it simmer for about 20 minutes to 30 minutes before I put the kale in, and we'll see how that looks. This is 12 ounces. I weighed it. Over the many times that I've made it, I find that that's just right for me in terms of the density of the kale in the soup. I'll raise the temperature up over here a little bit, and I'm going to start putting it in little by little because it floats on top for a while. Okay, here we go. It finds room. It finds spaces, although I may need a little more broth. We'll see. Does that look good? Not only does it look good, it looks healthy. Look at that. See how those potatoes are like breaking up? Some that give them chunks of potato. Let's see what we got here. Some people like soup to be more watery than other people do. Some people like it almost like a stew. It all depends on how you like it. Some people like bigger chunks, some people like smaller chunks. Some people like more kale, some people like less kale. This is why there are just so many recipes on YouTube on kale soup, because it's just, everybody's taste is different. There's variations that you can put in there. So I put all the kale in, and you see it's still simmering a little bit, which is what I wanted. I wanted that kale to feel that boiling water so that it just immediately reacted to it rather than a slow rise to temperature. I'm going to put it down to low heat and let it simmer for about 40 minutes, maybe 45. I don't mind if it cooks slowly for an hour even. It just, to me, it just gets better. And let those flavors meld. We'll give it a check at the end to see what it needs, see if it needs more salt or pepper, possibly. We'll see. Okay, so this is after about 30, 35 minutes. Look at that. Oh, that looks so perfect. Look at that. Oh, forgive me. So good. Hope you enjoyed. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.